We headed out into the Pacific Ocean 200 miles off the coast of California to pick up the trade wind that would carry us down toward the equator. Salisbury and his party made the round-the-world expedition aboard the Gypsy. It was a yacht 161 feet long. It had a crew of 18, and there were 13 scientists aboard. We had a laboratory for the development of moving picture film and the preservation of specimens to be collected, an ice machine, and we were well stocked for a long cruise in the tropics. But just before reaching the equator, you run into the doldrums. That's a vast expanse of water where there is very little, if any, wind. We had a diesel engine, and we turned on our power and had no difficulty getting across this quiet expanse of ocean. The boys during that time mended everything but their ways. And here you see Captain Salisbury's cleaners at work. And boy, could they clean. They invented the game of blackjack, and they had me clean the first day in the tropics. Very few of the sailors today know the knots that are necessary in the making of a hammock. This old fellow had been a deep-water sailor. He had been to the tropics before, and he knew that a very necessary part of the equipment was a hammock. When you pick up these clouds, known as the trade clouds, on the other side of the doldrums, you know that you're just about to get the trade wind that will carry you onto the equator. And when that shot of the sun was taken, we were just 75 miles northeast of the Marquesas group. Each man wanted to be the first to sight land, so he appointed himself a lookout. The Marquesas group is to be our first destination. It belongs to the French and is formed by a number of small islands. We made our headquarters in the harbor of Hiva-Oa, and we're going ashore to give you a glimpse of the Polynesian of the Marquesas group. We're going to stop here and there as we pass through Polynesia so that you can see the natives and the lives they lead and compare this with the lives of the natives in Melanesia, which you're going to see later. We spent several months in the Marquesas group, but we're only going to show you a glimpse. When Captain Cook discovered the Marquesas Islands, he estimated that there were over 100,000 natives inhabiting the different islands of the group. After Cook came the traders and the whalers with bad whiskey, with vices and disease. They were followed by the missionary with his mistaken idea that to be good, you must wear clothing. The missionaries compelled the men to wear cotton pants and shirts, and they put hideous Mother Hubbard wrappers on the women. The natives were not accustomed to this. They became very warm. The clothing became saturated with perspiration, and they'd sit in the cool trade winds. The wind blowing through the wet cloth gave them colds, and this turned into pneumonia. And thousands of them died. Today, I doubt very much if there are 300 Marquesans left. They lead a carefree life, these Marquesans, getting as much joy as possible out of each day. They don't need fish hooks, they use spears underwater. And a Marquesan always gets his fish. The fish are very plentiful, and the Marquesan is clever. That's a good combination. Frying pans, what use? They eat 'em raw. And I guess the fish, if given his choice, would rather be bitten by the white teeth of a Marquesan maiden than the teeth of a hungry shark. At least I would. On shore, we found fruits and vegetables growing in profusion. This is the mango, a very delicious tropical fruit, if you don't object to the slight taste of turpentine. but that taste is very slight. You don't notice it after you've eaten the fruit several days. It's delicious, and you don't care how much juice runs down your chin and inside of your shirt. And believe me, that's plenty. The breadfruit grows on a fine, large tree. It's a staple article of diet of the Marquesan. Flowers were everywhere and of every imaginable color. And there's another beautiful thing found in the Marquesas group. The girls. They're lovely. They're just happy grown-up children. They spend their days dancing, swimming, and singing on the beach. They wear a single garment called a periu. It's about twice as wide as a bath towel and twice as long. They take this and give it a quick flip around their bodies and tuck under the ends. There are no buttons or hooks or pins or suspenders, but I'm darned if I ever saw one of them fall off. And believe me, I watch carefully. It's a lucky captain that can visit one of these islands and get away with his entire crew, because some of the boys are tempted to desert. But you can't blame the fellows. The girls are friendly. It's really a great place for a young man, or for an old man with young ideas. We had no difficulty getting these girls to dance, but it was difficult to get them to stop. Whenever they heard music and saw the camera set up, they danced. Well, they insisted on getting into the picture. We're going to let them wriggle out of it the best way they can. And the Samoan Islands form the only group in the South Seas where the native life is increasing. Here, the birth rate is greater than the death rate. This mountain is known as Old Rainmaker because every day the clouds come in, strike the warm current of air against the side of the mountain, and it causes a precipitation. The natives told us that it rains every day in the year in Samoa, but it generally takes the form of hard showers at night. Plenty of sunshine during the day results in a luxurious growth of tropical vegetation. Part of the coast of Samoa, of the island of Tutuila, is rocky, which may differ from your idea of a South Sea Island beach. But they have these palm-lined beaches, and whenever you find one, you generally find a collection of native huts. To be a good South Sea Island dancer requires years of training. You have to start almost from the cradle. This little kitty got a pretty early start. But imagine exercising like this in the hot sun when you don't have to. The sitting Siva dance of the women of Samoa, according to Robert Louis Stevenson, who spent a great many years in the South Seas and who is buried in the Samoan group, is the most graceful dance in the world. Every movement made by these women tell a story. They tell of their past lives, of their present existence, and of their hopes and fears for the future. The women are good dancers in Samoa, but the men are better. The women have a few tasks to perform. But when America took possession of Samoa, the men learned that in America the politicians didn't work. So all the men in Samoa have become politicians. They don't work, all they do is dance and talk politics. And in their dance, their movements tell of the history of Samoa. The Samoans kept no written record of their history. All of the incidents were handed down from one generation to another in the movements of the Siva. It must be very interesting to one who can interpret the movements of this dance. Now you've had your glimpse of Polynesia. You've seen the natives.